Pittsburgh Steelers fans, welcome to the after party. Jeff Hartman, editor of BehindTheSteelCurtain.com, here with me is Dave Schofield and Bryan Anthony Davis. If you are listening in audio platforms, we appreciate you joining us again for another episode of the Steelers preview. It's a little bit different if it's your first time watching on YouTube, BTSC Steelers Radio, or listening. We kind of go off the cuff here a little bit. We do start off talking about the Steelers, talking about football, and then who knows where we go from there. This is a fun show, so sit back, relax, and let's get it started. I have a question for you guys. My question to start things off, to get the ball rolling, is there's always been players for me. I love watching football. We all love watching football, all three of us. There's always been players that I've seen on other teams that I said, my gosh, that guy would look great in black and gold. Just would be a perfect Steeler. My question is for you all, who are some of the players that would fall into that category? Go ahead, Bryan. You can start off.
I've got two.
Sure.
The first one's an obvious one. It's number 13, Dan Marino.
Okay.
That's really easy.
Yeah.
The next one, you guys are probably going to be shocked with me on this one, but I would have loved to have seen Rob Gronkowski as a Pittsburgh Steeler.
That's a guy. I never thought of that one.
I think he would have been a perfect tight end for that team.
He'd be a perfect tight end for any team. The guy's a freaking monster. Those are good. Those are really good. Dave, who do you have?
I've got to cover up the live chat because they're throwing up too much. Because there was one there that I thought was really good, which was with the Pitt connection.
Yeah,
Larry Fitzgerald. That's a great one.
Yeah,
for
really
me personally, my favorite player that I ever had that wasn't a Steeler. I'm not saying he's my all-time favorite player. I'm saying he's my favorite player who wasn't a Steeler. Was Mike Allstott. Because he was just a big bruising fullback / running back, because they lined him up with both. I still have the jersey up in my closet, and I wish it still fit me. And he would just run people over, and I'm like, run people over? That sounds like Steelers football to me.
I'm going to surprise you guys a lot. This is a division rival, okay? And you guys might laugh. I just think he would have been a ton of fun to write about. He would have been a ton of fun to watch every week. He was super talented. I think he was a little misunderstood. And that's one Chad Ochocinco Johnson. Because people forget how good he was. He was a tactician in terms of route running. He had great hands. He always had the ability. He was an ego guy, and I understand that. But my gosh, was he funny. Ike Taylor was on the Pat McAfee show this past week. And he talked about how the game, they asked him kind of more or less, what do you think's changed about the game? He said, the game's not as fun now as it used to be. He said, they let the guy celebrate. He goes, Chad Johnson would literally send us Pepto-Bismol in the mail to our facility leading up to a Steelers game. You don't have that anymore. He said, there's no fun like that. That the personalities have certainly been dulled a lot in terms of off the field. Chad Johnson was that mouth, he was the guy that you loved to have on your team, but everyone else hated him. And when the Steelers played Chad Johnson, I would always laugh at him, kiss the baby, all that stuff. It was hysterical. It was so fun. I love Chad Johnson. And I watched the A Football Life on him, and I was like, he's such a persona. I've always admired guys that have that persona. He never took it to Deion Sanders level, though. Like that was a thing for me. I don't know. You guys might disagree. Chad Johnson for me was a lot of fun. And I like that he made football fun. Everything is so serious all the time with football. In the NFL, everything's so serious. You can't say anything. Don't say anything to the media. Be quiet. No bulletin board. Chad Johnson said, I'll take your bulletin board material and shove it where the sun don't shine. I'm going to send the Steelers defensive backs Pepto-Bismol in the mail. Talk about bulletin. That's great. That is so great.
Do you remember his chart in his locker with all the defensive backs?
I know.
Ike Taylor was on there twice.
You don't have the fun like that anymore. Who's the last guy in the NFL you can think of that had remotely that much fun playing the game, enjoying the media and stuff like that? Anyone? Cricket. Yeah. That's what I'm talking. I like the fact that he had fun playing the game, and that's not a problem. I have no problem with that whatsoever.
Wasn't he still trying to get in the XFL as a kicker?
He didn't show up first. He didn't show up for his tryout. I don't know why.
I love that kind of stuff.
Yeah. Because did they give him an extra point eventually, or was that in a preseason game?
No, he did.
Okay,
it might have been I think it was preseason. You're thinking of Flutie. Flutie got to do a drop kick
Flutie did
in
the
a
drop
real
kick.
game.
But no, because Ocho Cinco always talked about wanting to kick. Always wanted to kick.
What did you see the extra point he kicked? And it was
It
was not a Dave Schofield special. I mean, that thing was right down the middle.
That might have been like a 23-year-old Dave Schofield special.
I don't know. I always loved trying to think of other players. You tend to go to positions that the Steelers might have lacked. Like Brian said, Rob Gronkowski. I always admired Antonio Gates. Give me the athletic tight end that you can just throw it up to in the red zone, and they're going to get it. And someone in the live chat said Tony Gonzalez, who's a similar way. Is there anyone else you guys are coming to the top of your head of players you wish played for the Steelers? Dave, anyone?
Well, if you want to talk about even making a different draft pick for this to happen, if the Steelers would have passed on Joshua Dobbs and instead drafted George Kittle, who was available at the time, that some people wanted them to take, that would be kind of nice right now. So, but that's just throwing out somebody that's still playing right now. Well, of course, Larry Fitzgerald's still playing now too, but
yeah.
Well, if I could ask you this, and I have said this for a while, and this is before someone else came along, but who is your favorite non-Steeler right now in the league?
Favorite?
Do you have one, Brian?
Well, I had a guy before his brother TJ came along, but JJ Watt I used to love, and that's the guy that I remember. One of my buddies over at Steeler Central looked at me and said, "We need this guy from Wisconsin, JJ Watt." And he flew up the draft boards, and I believe the Texans got him at number 11. But ever since he said that, I started paying attention to Watt, and I always loved the way he played. And I would love to see a guy like that in black and gold. And now we have a guy like that in black and gold, his brother, who is just playing fantastic. And now I love Rosie Nix, but if you ever needed a free agent fullback, Derek Watt's available as well.
Yeah, I saw that in your article. I was like, oh, wow, we could have a Watt connection. But nah, we'll see. I don't think so with Rosie's contract. Dave, what about you? Favorite player, not Steeler?
Favorite player, not Steeler. Well, it's really difficult to go with anyone, definitely in division. And it's still even difficult.
AFC.
I was going to say, it's really even difficult to go in conference.
Yeah.
So I'm trying to think. Go ahead and answer yours so I could really sort.
I think about players that I just like to watch. I don't have any like favorite player outside of the Steelers. Like I love to watch Russell Wilson play football. He's just fun to watch. Someone brought up, I was going to say this, Christian McCaffrey. I mean, my goodness, that guy does it all. He literally does it all. I just admire some of the Saquon Barkley. You watch him run the football. It's just fun to watch. You could even go over to the defensive side. There's several defensive players like JJ Watt, Aaron Donald, players that you don't necessarily get to see all the time, but are really, really good. And hey, give it up to guys like Patrick Mahomes too. I mean, they're fun to watch. I'm not rooting for him, obviously, if it has anything to do with the Steelers, but really, really fun to watch. Dave, you thought of one yet?
Yeah, well, because the other person that I kind of I was thinking Mahomes, but even another one. I hate to go AFC, but Deshaun Watson. I want to see him do well. I feel like he's a good guy, a good player. I'm glad he didn't go to Cleveland. I'm glad he didn't. I mean, but I still think he was good enough to go up in the top of that draft. So I was kind of pulled for him because he was that guy, especially when his coach, lobbied so hard for him to say, "Hey, anyone who passes on him is going to regret it." I want to see him live up to it.
Well, you know what? Look to the same college and his teammate, that wide receiver of his. I just forgot his name. Hopkins.
DeAndre Hopkins.
DeAndre Hopkins. I love watching play.
Yeah, those are all good. I have some other questions. Unless you guys have something, you guys want to go?
Yeah. Let me throw one out there.
Go, Brian.
So we talked about Chad Johnson, Ocho Cinco, and one of the things that he's known for is his mouth.
Yes.
Who is the greatest mouth in Pittsburgh Steelers history?
Oh, that's easy. Is anyone going to say anyone but Joey Porter?
Joey Porter.
Do you have someone else in mind, Brian?
I was going to go with Lee Flowers.
Oh, paper paper champion.
No, Joey's one of the best. Joey was
the best. He got into a fist fight before a Cleveland game, which, by the way, James Harrison thanks him for. I'm sure every time they see him.
I thank him for it.
Reed says Greg Lloyd. Mike Mitchell, Ezra. Oh, I don't like to bring up Mike Mitchell.
He was a mouth, but that mouth got him in trouble. Yeah, but Lethon Flowers, paper champions, and that guy, he was mouthing off every single week, and he and Joey were on the same team at one point.
Yeah, no, you're right. Yeah, they were. Boy, those are two mouthy guys.
But the thing with Joey Porter is he backed it up. He did.
He did.
Was it Anthony Smith? Was that the name of the guy that?
Anthony Smith was the guarantee in New England.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So and then he just fell off the map.
People
There's
always
a good one. There's a good one.
What's that?
Ryan Clark.
Did he really talk a lot? People always talk about Hines Ward with his, Hines Ward, his rule, the Hines Ward crackback rule. People forget they put a rule in for Joey Porter. And that was the players are not allowed to go past the 45 before kickoff. They can't go past the 45-yard line unless it's, it's two guys that are just going to go shake hands and talk, whatever. But players, and they're not allowed to warm up. There's like a 10-yard buffer, 45 to 45. And that's the Joey Porter rule, because in Cleveland, that's when they were walking to the 50 and he's got his jersey up, showing his abs, and he's jawing. Next thing you know, fists are flying.
William Green.
Yep.
He cracked William Green too. He really did.
Joey got shot in the butt too.
and remember when they beat Indianapolis, and I love the locker room talk when Cowher says, "And will you keep your mouth shut this week, Peasy?" And he goes, "Hell no, they shot me in Denver. We ran on 3. 1, 2, 3, we run."
I love how Cowher said, "Can you keep your mouth shut?" He says, "No."
Hell no, they shot me in Denver.
Oh my gosh. Okay, Dave, do you have any questions for this after party? I'm sure you have something.
Oh, not anything very relevant. I would just if we run out of
you
stuff,
want to hold that for later? I've got a lot of sports stuff.
Oh, go with sports stuff because mine has zero to do with sports.
Okay, that's fine. Think about any type of sporting event that you attended in person. I want you to think. It can be any sport.
Okay.
Who's the best athlete that you've ever seen participate in their particular sport in person? This was a tough one for me because I've seen some tremendous athletes in their sport in my time. And I want to know if you guys have a player you're like, I might have seen one of the best of the best. Who's that? Brian, we'll start with you.
So this is going to stun a lot of people. Now, I've seen a lot of players in football. I've seen an all-star game in baseball, but I got up close and personal in an NBA game once and this was late in this guy's career, but watching Reggie Miller play was one of the greatest things. I've noticed how this guy, there's 4 seconds left in the game and the game was over and he was going for it. They were down by 5, but he was going for it. He played bell to bell. And he was amazing to watch.
That's a good one. I never would have thought about that. Dave, what about you?
Well, I could top Brian's, and it's not even my top one because I'm not going to count watching Michael Jordan play because I watched him play when he was a member of the Wizards.
No, that doesn't count.
That doesn't count because I didn't. But you could make the same argument.
I think it counts.
You could make the same argument with the answer I'm going to say, and this one's the most memorable one from me because I was standing so close to him, I almost got hit with his backswing. So that tells you who I'm going to say. One, Tiger Woods. That I got to watch him golf and was extremely close to him when on his one shot that he had shanked right over top of my head.
There's 3 players, 3 athletes that come to mind. And I'm going to put them in this order. And some people might say, Jeff, you're absolutely insane. Number 3 is I got to go to Gund Arena in Cleveland to watch Michael Jordan play the Cleveland Cavaliers when he wore number 45. He had just come out of retirement. They had retired 23, and he had to wear 45, I think, for almost an entire season until they allowed him to go back to 23. That was special, especially getting to see him in that weird jersey because they just wasn't used to it. The second is by far Le Magnifique, Mario Lemieux. Mario was a transcendent player, and I've seen Sidney Crosby, and he's close, but he's not there yet.
You saw Lemieux in person?
Oh my gosh, yeah. Used to go up to the Civic Arena all the time.
Yeah, I never saw Lemieux.
Watching Mario Lemieux when Jaromir Jagr was on the team was literally a thing of beauty. I get chills just thinking about it. When they used to have in the 91-92 season, when the power play would come on, everyone that was around the city, and that stretched to like Wheeling and probably Johnstown for Brian, that you all knew what they did. They would hand out those paper fins, the shark fin, and all of a sudden when the power play would come out, you'd hear nah, 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 and everyone put their fin up, because that power play with Jagr, Lemieux, Francis, if they wanted, or Kevin Stevens net front, Larry Murphy in the back end. I mean, it was
clutch.
Phenomenal. They were so good. Mario Lemieux was fantastic. In my opinion, the best set of hands I've ever seen on a hockey player. And I did get to see Wayne Gretzky too. I saw him when they came to the Civic Arena one time. He was real late in his career, and so he was a shell of himself. But still, Mario Lemieux, if he didn't have to battle cancer, he didn't battle back issues, he was already up on the statistical level of the greatest ever. He'd be even closer to Gretzky. So keep that in mind. All those people that see Ovechkin passing Lemieux, I'm like, come on, look at the games played. Look at the games played. But by far, the best athlete that I've ever seen in his particular sport, Dave just said, I got to see Tiger Woods. And I got to see Tiger Woods at Firestone when he was in his prime. That was a different Tiger Woods.
Ooh,
that would
have been nice.
Different Tiger Woods. And I saw Rory McIlroy win the U.S. Open at Congressional in 2011, and that was he won that by a large margin. We were there on Saturday, round 3. But to watch Tiger Woods in his prime, I've never seen anything like it. The dominance in a sport that is not supposed to be dominated was unbelievable. Unbelievable. I don't think we'll ever see that again. Period. So
I have not seen him, and I'm bummed that I haven't.
You might still have the chance.
I had a chance.
He just doesn't play that much anymore. That's the problem.
I had a chance to see him in 1994 at Sunnyhanna Country Club in Johnstown when he was like 15, 16 years old. And my dad's like, hey, we should go see this guy play. It's like 10 minutes up the road. And I was like, yeah, I'm busy. And because we knew everything about him then. And I didn't go see him. I did miss one on the list. So I'm going to throw it out there. I've seen Hulk Hogan wrestle.
No. I never saw him live. I never saw him live.
I never saw him.
I'm wrong, Brian. Back in the day with wrestling, like when we're talking Macho Man, we're talking Hulk, we're talking about the golden age of the WWF. Very rarely did they do the in-ring promos that they did primarily with, most of the time, were they not backstage? Did they not have the sets and stuff like that, and then they would come out afterwards? Because that's when Macho Man would always say, Elizabeth, get down that aisle, and then she would walk down first.
Yeah, so, they were recorded way before with
right.
Yeah,
it was my favorite era of wrestling was the DX, The Rock, Stone Cold Steve Austin. Someone called that an era before, and I forget what era they called it.
Attitude Era.
The Attitude Era. That was by far the best era of wrestling for me. And they did all those in-ring stuff was the greatest, because that's when, Stone Cold Steve Austin's talking, and all of a sudden you hear, if you smell, and then the crowd just goes nuts, or you hear the glass break and Stone Cold comes stomping out. That was awesome. Don't get me started on wrestling right now, because I'm in a wrestling mood. I love that.
Never thought this of you. And we were standing outside of a yogurt shop about 2 years ago, and you started in on wrestling, and I was like, "Oh my gosh, you like wrestling?" And then I found out Dave liked it. It's like I would do I could do an entire wrestling podcast every week because especially old school stuff. Roddy Piper. I saw Roddy Piper fight Ric Flair in '92 in Johnstown.
That's cool.
It was, stuff like that. I got to see, I've seen Shawn Michaels and The Rock and Triple H and Stone Cold. I got hit by Stone Cold's beer once.
I actually worked a lot of those events in Wheeling, where I'm from. I was an usher at the Civic Center, and whenever wrestling would come, I would work the events. And so I got to see a lot of concerts at that venue. And one year I got paid to see Stone Cold stunned Vince McMahon on Raw. And it was recorded, but he stunned. It was one of the coolest things. Even as an employee, like I'm just glued people were probably wondering where do I sit. I'm like, hey, you figure it out yourself. Come on, I'm watching the wrestling match here. And he came out and stunned Vince McMahon. That was a great memory. That was pretty cool. What about you, Dave? What's your favorite era of wrestling since you're a wrestling guy?
All right. Well, of course, I started to get back into wrestling in my college days, which was the really fun NWO with those guys, and that was a whole lot of fun, especially with the whole thing with Goldberg coming on the scene. Saw him lose his first match. I was there. But it has to be exactly what you said when it was The Rock. This was right before, I think 98, 99, and 2000 was my three main, didn't miss anything ever that was out that was WWF. I was at someone's house for every pay-per-view. I watched every show. Had to use the VHS tape sometime to tape every show and watch all of those. So that's my number one.
Okay, I've got to bring this up. Ezra says, I'm going to end the wrestling debate. Hulk Hogan's the man, right? The Ultimate Warrior's the GOAT. No. And I'll tell you why. The Ultimate Warrior had no persona. He had nothing. He came out and shook the ring. You had the cool dun, 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 and he would just shake the ropes. That's it. I mean, he was the maniac. Don't get me wrong, but he didn't even talk for like the first 10 years of his career. And what was it?
He did. You don't know what the heck he was saying.
Was it WrestleMania?
When the thunder comes down from the sky and the Warriors.
Was it WrestleMania 3 that it was Hulk Hogan versus Ultimate Warrior?
6.
Or was it 6? I'm sorry. I saw that on pay-per-view.
Because 3 was Andre the Giant.
You're right. That was the Madison Square Garden, I think.
I watched that.
Oh. But 6, though, Vince McMahon will still say publicly that one of the worst decisions he ever made was giving the Ultimate Warrior in WrestleMania 6 both belts. Because if you remember, he had the Intercontinental, Hulk Hogan had the heavyweight, and he beat Hulk Hogan for both. And he didn't hold on to those long because they realized he has no persona. None. That's what wrestling's about. It's about entertainment, not shaking the ropes.
He was something, though. I mean, he was incredible to watch. But gosh, I could go on forever about this.
Well, Vodka brings up one of my favorite wrestlers of all time, and that's Bret the Hitman Hart. My instant messenger name was Hitman Hart 21, and it's a part of it is HART because of my last name. Maybe a lot of players in baseball called me the Hitman because Hartman. But I used to put my cousins in the sharpshooter all the time. And
no.
Such a great
I'm really going to go back. You know what my brother used to do to me all the time? Which is
Big Bro Rich.
People know Big Bro Rich. You know what he used to do for me until I got to be bigger than him?
Figure 4?
No. Iron Sheik.
Oh,
the camel clutch. He used to jump on me. He used to jump on me and slap me in the camel clutch and hold me there for forever. Forever. We would just be sitting there for a long time. You can't break this. You can't break this. So, yeah.
I mean, I could tell you how many times in high school we walked up to each other and pretended to stun each other. Do the stunner. Kick him in the groin.
He actually had a T-shirt at one time. When you hear the glass, it means your ass. Austin 316.
I mean, how many times? Not even because you didn't like the person or anything. How many times have you guys ever been in a conversation or something with a person, and you're just like, how great would it be right now that I could just kick him and stun him right now, just out of the blue? How great it would be. So like, well, really?
No. If you know my daytime job, it's all the time.
Yeah. Okay.
So, well, and a great moment one time, I think it was either in college or just out of college. We were at the beach, and I was standing there up on the sand. My sister, who's only a year older than me, so she's younger than my brother, she's standing down in the surf, and my brother turned to me and said, how great would it be if you went and speared her right now? You did the Goldberg spear. I didn't even say a word. I just took off running, and she turned right as I got there, and boom, I speared her right in the ocean. I'm like, I could never time that again, but it was great.
Dave, that's amazing. One of the most underrated when you talk about the great ones, because he never won a title, but with one of the greatest heels of all time is Ted, the $1 Million Man DiBiase.
Ha 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 ha. Everyone's got a partner.
Everyone is.
I thought you were going with Leaping Lenny Poffo.
Oh my gosh.
Oh, Macho Man's brother?
Yeah, Macho Man's brother.
Leaping Lenny Poffo.
That came out and read his poetry.
The Ted DiBiase was the great heel, by the way, but he had his own belt. He didn't need anyone else's belt. He had the $1 million belt. That's all that mattered.
And
Hence why he brought in Steve Austin. That was his guy that he brought into the. And it's so funny how guys have these names that sticks with him. Like the only reason he was brought in is because he was brought in by the $1 Million Man, and that's why they called him Steve Austin. Which I hope Jeff.
No, he was stunning Steve Austin. He was stunning Steve Austin, but before that.
But I mean that was one thing, and then the whole like Triple H, his whole persona when he first came in.
Yeah, Hunter Hearst Helmsley. He was very prim and proper.
Very elegant, and he had to do the bow after each match and
before he was terrorizing in WCW. It was a really bad gimmick.
Oh my god. Okay, Isaac puts $5 in the tip jar and says, I kid you not, in my unit, thank you for your service, by the way. We used to actually do the stunner to each other all the way through every day. Got in a lot of trouble, but it was worth it.
Okay, Isaac, you gonna tell me this? Yeah. How bad does that hurt? If you're actually stunning someone.
That not so bad. I'll be honest with you. I was in college, and it was a summer job. I actually worked as a student painter, not like painting portraits. Meaning we painted schools is actually what we did, and it was a friend of mine that it was his girlfriend's house. We would go and watch all these pay-per-views, but his dad was our boss, and his dad was telling us about. And he wasn't a very big guy, but he was really tough. He had done tough man competitions. And he told us a story about how he got in a fight in a bar one time. He says, and this guy was huge. I didn't know what else to do. So he hit him. He said, don't ever do this, because he ended up losing a bunch of money in a lawsuit because of it. Was that he actually did a DDT to a guy in a fight. And he's like, don't ever do that to someone because you will mess them up.
Jake the Snake. That was his finisher.
Yeah.
So let me ask you this. We could pull this back around to the Steelers.
Oh my gosh.
So, yeah, we can.
Let's do it.
Is this trivia about when Ben and the offensive line came in?
Nope.
Okay.
In the 1990s, the Steelers had a player a player that his cousin was a WWE champion.
Oh, that was on the I know this guy. I know his last name because I read this. We had Michael Beck from BehindTheSteelCurtain.com wrote the top 7 3-4 defensive ends, and he was one of them. And he even wrote that his cousin was, and I know who his cousin was, but I'm not going to say it in case Dave wants to guess. I can know his last name. I can't remember his first name. Dave, do you remember?
No, go for it, Jeff.
Well, his last name's Henry because Mark Henry was his cousin. Yeah. What was his first name?
Kevin. It was everyone thought it was Kevin, but it was Kevin Henry.
I remember
76. And I believe came out around 96. I think he came in around 96 or 97.
And what was Mark Henry's path to WWF?
Strongman weightlifting.
Strongman competitions.
Yeah.
So
go ahead, Brian.
Earlier, Wes brought up IRS, Erwin R. Shyster.
Yeah.
His son is actually champion now, Bray Wyatt or The Fiend. So he's actually the world heavyweight champion, and he's going with the most amazing gimmick right now because he's probably one of the best gimmicks they've had in years, and this guy's completely reinvented himself.
I don't watch anymore, so it's tough.
I don't either.
Oh, I still do.
That's good.
Which is no surprise to anybody.
I don't know if I'm going to regret what I just did, but I just put out there in the live chat. Does anyone have any crazy questions for us? Because I figure we've never asked for questions. We always ask our own questions.
That's awesome.
So if there's something that you want to know within the realm of, let's keep it.
Well, then I'll ask you.
Go ahead with your question.
No. This is something not what I had planned. This is
okay
to go with the wrestling stuff. Did you have wrestling dolls, and who did you have? Because I had the original.
What kind of dolls? Are you talking about the action figures?
The original action figures. Like I still have some of the old school original ones.
I still have Hulk Hogan's, 2 Hulk Hogan ones that and actually have the belt. I mean, they might have
lost my belt.
They're not in mint condition because like the knees are worn off, but I bet those are actually worth something. My son in his bed right now has my wrestling buddy. It's a Hulk Hogan wrestling buddy that I kept.
That's awesome.
All these years.
Yeah, I know what you mean.
The stuffed one that had the arms and the legs and stuff. So I had a Hulk Hogan. I still have that. So I didn't have any other ones though. Really, my cousins had the Ultimate Warrior. My cousins used to have. Remember the finger ones that you could put your fingers in the back and make their legs, and you had the ring, that smaller ring that you could actually wrestle each other with, like finger puppets almost. Yeah,
I am almost leaving right now. I have thumb wrestlers. I have a Hulk Hogan and Randy Macho Man Savage NWO thumb wrestlers, where you put them on your thumb and they got the arms, and you're supposed to wrestle until one of them.
Yeah, okay, there you go.
But I have the old school. You guys should, if you remember from about a year ago when I was in the other room, one of them was on the shelf before. Not only have a Hulk Hogan, I've got Andre the Giant, I've got Jimmy Superfly, and my son has all these up in his room right now. I've got George the Animal Steel, I've got King Kong Bundy, and I've got Nikolai Volkov.
Awesome.
You know, I knew Nikolai Volkov before he passed away.
Yeah. Oh, well, I think you've said that before.
An amazing guy. Absolutely amazing guy. What a character.
Here's a question for you to look up, Dave. I don't think any of us know the answer off the top of our heads. Doc asks, I got an interesting question. If Tomlin one day gets into the Hall of Fame, are the Steelers the first team ever with 3 head coaches in a row making it? That would be an interesting stat there.
Ooh.
That is
would they be the
fantastic. Who put that out there?
Doc Apollo. What a great name.
That is a great name and a great question.
Yeah. Obviously, we don't have the answer for it right now.
No. We'll look it up. Ezra says, "What's your favorite movie of all time?" Mine is Goodfellas. This is this is very difficult. To me, you have to kind of categorize
break it into genre and stuff.
Yeah. Well, since he said Goodfellas, is Goodfellas the best gangster movie that you've ever seen?
Aside from The Godfathers, I mean, I put The Godfathers in a different category, actually, because you're not touching The Godfather, but Goodfellas is my favorite over Casino and stuff like that.
The scene in the cornfield at Casinos always gets me though. That's a crazy one. Dave, what about you?
I'm not.
Would Scarface count? Would Scarface count?
Yeah, I would say it would count, but I'm honestly not really into those kind of movies to judge them. I don't know that I've seen any of those movies, all of them in their entirety at one time. So
Goodfellas is my favorite. It's by far the best. This is a question for me that Wes had. Crazy question.
Brought up a good one.
Which guy on your show would you want to wrestle, Jeff, and what kind of match? Oh my gosh. I you know what? Give me Lance Williams. We'll go tag team Lance and Jeff versus Brian and Dave in a tag team, no holds barred. I want the old school skirt on the ring, so we're going underneath the skirt and getting out remember they used to have the chairs underneath the ring and all that stuff.
TLC.
We're gonna have some fun. Yeah, we're gonna have some fun. I don't want a ring. I don't want a cage or anything like that. Just no holds barred, having fun. There you go.
I would take that because I know Brian would play dirty.
Yeah, I knew you were going to say that. Yes, because
Brian would play dirty. I would
I'd play dirty.
I would so take that. And guys, I'm huge, man. Jeff, I just have to lay on you. You wouldn't be able to move.
You'd have to catch me.
We're in a ring. I mean,
come on now. But this is a wrestling match. This is not real life fighting. We're not actually fighting. This is like a wrestling match. So
like professional wrestling.
Andre the Giant did not lay on everyone.
No.
So therefore,
King Kong Bundy sure did. What are you talking about?
Brian's the guy that would have the, he'd have all the stuff in his tights. He's that guy that he's bringing out the dust and throwing it in people's faces, and he has the brass knuckles in his tights. It
was either Ric Flair or Ken Patera that once said, "Win if you can, lose if you must, but always cheat." If I'm wrestling, I'm cheating.
Tony's is he the official or the ref or whatever they call themselves?
Tony's a manager. He's a
manager. Okay.
Oh yeah, he would be a manager. He loves old school wrestling. He loves that stuff.
All right, let's see here.
Bad wear the PJ Penny pants. They're technically like wrestling tights.
This is a question for Brian Anthony Davis right here. Your worst 2 a.m. experience. I don't know if we want to get into all that in this episode. Maybe in another one. He's going to start talking about the Yeti, and then it's going to go all sorts of different ways. So I don't know. Let's see if we have anything else here.
I was called the new Rikishi. I'll take that.
The new Rikishi.
I could see Brian in a Mankind get up.
Well, earlier they said
that guy's one of my favorites. I got
Mankind.
Well, how do you not?
Yeah,
love
but he went into the different personas. He lost me a little bit. Dude Love. And
I met him a couple years ago when he came to our town, and he's just great. Let's coordinate BAD versus Dave Schofield with.
Can Brian dress up as Gold Dust one show? And this is true too from I Am Girth. He said, I would never fight Lance. He killed Tupac. If you haven't heard Lance's Tupac story, you have to go back and listen. It was like 2 weeks ago on the Standard is a Standard. He at the very end of the show, he has a Tupac story. There you go. Okay, so Vodka Drinker, he says, I think that we should coordinate Brian and versus Dave with me as the referee. I would love to be the ref. Let me be the ref. I'm sliding all around the ring, getting distracted over here by someone while Brian takes out the brass knuckles and punches Dave out of that. Would be fun. That'd be fun. All right, let's hear it. All right, so they're kind of calming down. Why do you think Jeff picked him as a tag team partner? That's right. You want to talk about playing dirty? Lance is packing heat. We'll put it that way. All right, Dave, why don't you go ahead and ask your question?
No,
we're not doing this.
We'll save that. We'll save it for another time. It does not fit with the flow of this show one bit. So we'll save it for another time.
Oh, look at Lance.
There's Lance.
He killed Tupac.
Nerds.
I didn't. Well, yeah, I did say it. That's okay. That's okay. Here's a good question for us. Did Rocky 3 make Hulk Hogan as far as mainstream popularity is concerned? Yeah.
Absolutely.
Thunder Lips.
Because they went and he was still wrestling in Minnesota in the AWA.
I didn't know that.
Vince went and grabbed him. Yeah, that definitely.
So Vince grabbed him after the movie.
Yeah.
Wow. I didn't know
I think
that.
he was there beforehand a little bit, and then he's floating around. That's when they had the territory wrestling, and then Vince went, and that was the one that Vince said, we're going to make this guy champ now. Went and grabbed him and gave him a big contract to start.
And who did he beat the first time he won the championship?
Lips.
Sheik.
Yeah, he beat the Iron Sheik.
Gosh, when you think about that compared to the Attitude Era, that's a horrible match. I mean,
yeah.
Think about the finishers back then. A lot of guys were talking about the finishers, Hulk Hogan was the big boot and dropping the leg. That's it. That was his finisher. Or I'm sorry, the body slam, obviously. And then what do you think was it? I think it was Jimmy Superfly Snuka that kind of ratcheted everything up.
Yeah.
Top rope, belly. Yeah, that kind of ratcheted everything up. But even Stone Cold's the stunner was awesome. But even the people's elbow, that was funny.
That was awful. The rock bottom was okay, but the people's elbow, nah. I don't want to get super kicked by Shawn Michaels or Dolph
Ziggler. Sweet chin music. The sweet.
Yeah, sweet chin music. That's some rough stuff.
I remember they would say he's tuning up the band. He's over there stomping on the ground. Next day he stands up and bang. Awesome. The crossface chicken wing. Vodka Drinker brings up that. That's a good one. Good times. And Ali says the Iron Sheik is a great Twitter follow.
Oh my gosh. I've got a buddy that was paid to follow him back in the wrestling independent circuit. He told me Sheik stories that you would not believe. They'd melt your hair.
Are these like 2 a.m. stories?
Yeah, there's no BAD stories that could ever top this.
We have yet to tell the Yeti story. So
any story's mild, but I could. Oh my gosh, I could tell you the Greedy Gretchen story. Oh, I could go. That's for another time.
Yeah, it's been a good one. This has been a good show. Good show. So, all right, guys, anything to add before we call it? They're not the best color men in the world.
You took me down memory lane, guys. And I loved it.
All right, guys. Hey, if you're watching live, thank you very much. We appreciate all the participation in the live chat on such a crazy show. And remember, this will not be published until about 1 p.m. or noon on Friday. So check it out then. The Steelers preview will be published tonight. Check it out, and we'll see you next week for another episode of the Steelers preview. Take it easy, everyone.